Hello and welcome to Conversations with the Voice of Reason. I'm your host, Benjamin Boyce, and today's conversant is Constantin von Hoffmeister. He is the founder of Multipolar Press and an author in his own right. And in this conversation, we talk about multipolarity, which is a doctrine of distinct world powers that respect and yet vie with one another for dominance. It's a very fascinating concept, and Constantin does well in explaining it to me and going through its implications and why, let's just say, Russia doesn't particularly want to participate in the West's cultural trajectory, but rather have a culture and telos of its own. You can find Constantin's work down there in the description, as well as links to support this channel. Without further ado, here is Constantin von Hoffmeister. Where are you from originally?
I'm from Germany originally.
Okay.
I'm there right now, actually. Uh, I just moved back a couple of years ago. I was out of the country for, I don't know, over 25 years. Yeah, just got back for family reasons mostly. Not very happy about it, but it is what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I lived in Moscow before that for 12 years.
What brought you there?
And sorry?
What brought you there?
Actually, it's a long story. So, well, I lived in Moscow before I lived in Moscow, I lived in New Orleans. I went to university there for 7 years. That was like 2002, 2003. Uh, I was doing my master's in political science at the University of New Orleans, and I was in the student library doing research on Alexander Dugin and the Eurasianist movement, which at that time was a totally fringe phenomenon. Like they were pretty much unknown in Russia and in the West. Well, now Dugin is a household name ever since his daughter was tragically murdered. He's quite famous now, both in Russia and in the West. People claim he's Putin's advisor. I'm not sure if it's true, but anyway, when I was in New Orleans, it was like over 20 years ago. 2000, I think 2003, maybe 2004. Yeah, I was very interested in just the whole phenomenon of national Bolshevism. I found it quite fascinating. So I was doing a lot of research, like reading articles online and getting in contact with different people. And yeah, so after I graduated, I decided to move to Moscow, mostly because I wanted to meet this crowd basically, and I wanted to take a Russian language course. And that's what I did, yeah. So I just moved to Moscow, took a sort of like a 3 month like basic Russian language course, and got in touch with all the Eurasianists there. I had an American friend actually lived in Moscow. Um, he was a sort of like a American nationalist type, and he was doing the English version of the Alexander Dugin Eurasianist website. He was managing it basically. And yeah, sort of I hung out with him and we talked and stuff. And he told me that Alexander Dugin, that was in 2005. Yeah, so in 2005, Alexander Dugin wanted to have a conference in the city of Alexandrov, which is about 2 hours from Moscow by car or by bus. I think we went by bus. Yeah, so about 3 hours from Moscow. Alexandrov also has a Kremlin. And Ivan the Terrible, the Russian Tsar, also called Ivan the Third, he moved his court from the Kremlin in Moscow to the Kremlin in Alexandrov. Um, and Alexander Dugin wanted to have the conference in the throne room of Ivan Grozny, the Ivan the Terrible, the Russian Tsar. And my American friend, of course, was good friends with Dugin and the whole crowd because he was helping them out. And so Alexander Dugin wanted to have the sort of international flair for the conference. So he wanted to have international speakers. My American friend, he spoke at the conference, or he was invited to speak at the conference. And well, so I guess they found out I'm from Germany, so they invited me as well to speak. So I actually spoke at this founding conference of the Eurasianist youth movement in the throne room of Ivan the Terrible in the town of Alexandrov. In the background, there was a screen where they were showing the Sergei Eisenstein, the silent film, Ivan Grozny or Ivan the Terrible, just as a sort of like background atmosphere. It was quite nice. Yeah, the throne was to the left of me where Ivan used to sit. So that was really cool. Yeah.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's how I got to know Alexander Dugin. I met his daughter. She was a child back then,
Hmm.
and well, a bunch of other people. And yeah, I greatly enjoyed it. So yeah, I stayed in Moscow for, like I said, several years. Met a lot of different people from all walks of life. Well, Russians, of course, but also a lot of expats in Moscow at the time. Yeah. Also spent a year in Uzbekistan. So I think I was in Moscow like 2 years, but then I went to Uzbekistan for a year to the capital, Tashkent. Yes,
Hmm.
teaching at an elementary school. Anyway, sorry.
No, I am just now kind of dipping my toe into Russian history. Specifically, read a book called Collapse. It's about Gorbachev managing the collapse of the USSR and Yeltsin kind of picking up the nationalist banner in the chaos. And then I'm almost done with a biography on Putin called The Last Tsar or The New Tsar. And it kind of charts Putin's life from his KGB time, actually from his childhood to being in the
Right.
KGB to kind of, I don't know to what how accurate the book is, but it presents the story of Putin's rise to power as kind of a fluke of how things operated under Yeltsin, and Yeltsin just kind of appointed him because he was loyal, and then Putin kind of consolidated power. And it's just really fascinating to see how the impact of the Stalin regime kind of reverberates through Russian history and how the West kind of facilitated and celebrated the collapse of the USSR, but then kind of let Russia flounder after the breakup of the that duopoly on power that they had, the Cold War era. And so it's just really interesting to try to understand Russia as a particular state with a particular history, with particular people, with particular values. And so I'm really interested how you view it, and maybe understand as a German where your history comes from, where your family from East or West Germany, and how did the collapse of the Soviet Union impact your family and then impact your worldview?
Well, it was in 1989, right? When East Germany fell, basically, when the wall fell. So I was like 12 or 13. Um, Yeah, I think the biggest impact that I remember, I was standing at a train station I'm from West Germany, so the capitalist American occupied Germany,
Mm.
in a small town in southern Germany, basically where I grew up. And so yeah, like so I was like 12, 13 when the wall fell, 1989. And yeah, hold on. So sorry. Even before the wall fell, yeah, you had this incident when like East German tourists went to Czechoslovakia and basically went to the West German embassy to basically ask for asylum because they didn't want to go back to East Germany. And so I think there were hundreds of East Germans, like quote unquote refugees, camped out in the garden of the West German embassy in Czechoslovakia. Yeah, that was before the wall fell, but that's how it all started.
Mm.
And there was a lot of pressure, I guess, on the East German government to sort of like let them go to the West, or they didn't know what to do. But I think at that time the whole system in East Germany was already crumbling. And so I think it was like several weeks. Like these Germans were hanging out at the at the West German embassy, and eventually they just decided, yeah, to just let them cross over to the West. And so all these like West German refugees went to West Germany from Czechoslovakia, and they all arrived by train in different towns in West Germany because I think they were all distributed to like different facilities in
Mm.
different towns in Germany, and some of them were uh, going to be housed in our town. So I just remember standing with my parents at the train station waiting for these like East German refugees basically, and everybody was screaming like joyfully, like welcoming them basically.
Wow.
Welcoming him to the West. Yeah, that's what I remember. Yeah, and then shortly after the wall fell and it was all over for the German Democratic Republic. Uh, yeah, but then I think the German Democratic Republic, I mean, the wall fell, but the German Democratic Republic still existed for another couple of months. Like the wall, the fall of the wall was not, it didn't happen at the same, it didn't happen at the same time as the fall of the system, basically. So first the wall fell and the system continued for a while. Because I remember, like the wall fell, of course, it was huge celebrations, fireworks, singing, dancing, drinking, everybody very happy. And we had these Indian friends from London that my parents had known for decades, like since the 1970s. Like my father was invited to a wedding in Bombay in 1972 because one of his old schoolmates got married to an Indian woman, and the wedding took place in Bombay. That's the first time my father went to India. And yeah, he met these Indians from London that were also at the wedding, and they became good friends. And because of this, I was also very often in London from a very young age, like several times a year. Uh, so this Indian couple, uh, they came for a visit to Germany, and that was right after the wall fell. And so my parents decided it's a great opportunity to go to East Germany, but it was still the German Democratic Republic. Uh, and that's yeah, so that's the first time I went to East Germany with my parents and their Indian friends. So we went to like Dresden, Leipzig, all these like major cities in East Germany. And yeah, it was I still remember it, even though I was very young. But I remember it was a sort of sort of like it seemed like time travel almost. Yes, because like the whole atmosphere was so different from West Germany. Like it felt like I traveled back to the 1960s almost. Like everything was really gray, not a lot of color. Uh, I remember buying a German edition published by an East German publisher of the Sherlock Holmes short stories for like a couple of cents, basically. It's like dirt cheap, of course. Everything was really cheap. The service was terrible in the restaurants because it didn't have a service mentality, obviously, because it was
Hmm.
a communist system. But everything was really cheap. People generally were very friendly. And yeah, because the borders were already open, you were allowed to travel there freely. Because like it was already in the stage of collapse. But yeah, it was quite an interesting experience. And of course, my Indian friends, they really enjoyed it, took a lot of pictures, and
Hmm.
uh, and it was rather unique. Yes, but all the sculptures were still there, like Lenin and Marx, all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but yeah, I just remember that the quality of the roads were like, yeah, quite shoddy, of course. Like everything was really run down. It
Hmm.
seemed run down. Yes.
Hmm.
I guess because they didn't have a lot of money at the time, neither the people nor the state, uh, as it was already in an advanced state of decay. But yeah, so I remember like I had these images in my mind basically of these like different street scenes or even different sites. Because I remember I went to Leipzig, the city of Leipzig, and there's a restaurant in Leipzig called Auerbach's Keller, which is famous because it's the setting of Goethe's Faust, the famous play by Goethe. A famous scene takes place in that particular restaurant, which is in the basement, and that's why it's a very touristy place. They have like they have even, I think they even have a sort of sculpture of Mephistopheles from Goethe's Faust in the restaurant. So that was a highlight visiting that because I had just read Goethe's Faust in high school, so I remember this very well.
What
Yeah.
What do you think was the process of reunification like for the German mentality? What,
Well,
so,
I guess, well, at different stages. I think first it was euphoria when you had the Scorpions playing the song "Winds of Change," yes, and everybody was dancing on the wall, and uh, East Germans thought they would enter paradise basically, where they could, I don't know, travel to exotic locales and buy all the stuff that they had always wanted in the great shopping malls of the West. And I think they got a little bit of money. I think it was 100 Deutschmarks they got, sort of like welcome money
Hmm.
when they came to the West. And they, of course, they spend it all. So, I mean, that was the first stage, I think. But I think then it's sort of like the drunken stage, right? But then the great sobering uh,
Hmm.
happened. Yes, when especially the East Germans realized that I would say like not everything worked according to the propaganda that they had been accustomed to, like I don't know, like watching Baywatch on West German television and stuff like this, right? Because that's what they imagined. Because like I mean, West Germans, of course, they all grew up with American movies and TV shows, all that stuff, right? Uh, I guess in East Germany, they weren't supposed to watch uh, West German television, but they did it anyway, of course, a lot of them. So I mean, and it's all they knew about the West was what they saw on TV. So they thought they'd have an easy life and, cruise around and visit beaches in California, get all the great consumer goods, blue jeans, CDs, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But of course, there were a lot of economic problems because I mean, the industry was pretty much intact, I would say, in East Germany, was then dismantled basically by Western companies, purposely destroyed, so to speak, and caused that massive unemployment and the great exodus of the people. Lots of people left, depopulated entire villages and towns in East Germany, moved to the West to find a better life, to find a job, to make a living. And I think the third stage is an even greater disillusionment. Yes, because a lot of East Germans, and I have a lot of East German friends, they realized that there was a lot of censorship in East Germany. Like there was no free speech, obviously. Lots of censorship. People went to prison for expressing their opinions and so on. But to their utter dismay, and they found out it's not much different in West Germany.
Hmm.
Because, I mean, in West Germany, people also go to prison for uttering their opinions, for writing books or publishing blog posts. And yeah, so people realize it's pretty much the same under just like a different facade, so to speak. But I would say the how would you say it, the system itself is equally totalitarian in the West.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's just not a communist totalitarian. Here, I would say it's basically a liberal totalitarian system you have in West Germany, and I think this is why a lot of them became very disillusioned very quickly, and today a lot of them even say would probably the German Democratic Republic was a better Germany in after all. Yes.
Hmm.
And yeah, I would have to agree with this sentiment, to be honest.
In
Yes.
what way? Because it was
Well,
outwardly poor, but there was more honesty.
yeah, I wouldn't say, yeah, I would say because it wasn't nearly as culturally corrosive and morally destructive as the West German system. And I think it's because it was communist. I would say because some people say some people argue that it's in spite of the communist system, but I would even argue that it's because of the communist system, because you see the same phenomenon all across Eastern Europe and all the former socialist states, including Russia. Yes, that all of them today are more traditional and more conservative than their Western counterparts, the capitalist Western counterparts. And even today in Germany, basically you have two Germanys today. You have West Germany and you have East Germany. And the East German states are socially much, much more conservative than the West German ones. I mean, it's even reflected in the voting patterns, right? Like you have the AfD, the Alternative for Germany. I think on average in West Germany has like between 15 and 20%, but in East Germany it's like between 30 and 40%.
Hmm.
I mean, in one state, Thuringia, I think it's the strongest party. I think it's like almost 40%, and in all the other ones, it's the second strongest party.
Yeah, if
This
its leaders could
indicates
just stop dying for a bit, they might be able to hold power.
right. Yeah. Well, yes. So basically, I think the Soviet Union also was socially conservative, right? I mean, you had a socialist system, but I think it was socially conservative. This is what a lot of people on the right today don't understand. I mean, because they imagine that the Soviet Union was somehow some haven for blue-haired degenerates, right? When that was clearly not the case.
Mhm.
Yes, I mean, you cannot really compare like these American or West European communists that you have to, or people that call themselves communists today, to what the Soviet Union represented, or East Germany was a completely different. And East Germany, I think, the German Democratic Republic, was socially conservative, was rather traditional, and even nationalist to some extent,
Mhm.
because they celebrated like the Prussian heritage quite proudly, I would say.
Yes.
They even re-erected the statue of the Prussian King Frederick the Great on the main street in East Berlin.
Yeah. And West Germany is kind of lost connection with its history. As
Yeah, totally, of course. Right. Well, because Germany, I mean, well, Germany lost the war, right? Obviously, 1945. So one half was occupied by the Western Allies. So it was, well, mostly the Americans, but also the British and the French and Canadians. Um, Small contingent, I guess, and well, East Germany, but by the Soviets, by the Russians, basically.
yeah.
But since the Soviet Union was already socially conservative, they imposed their values on East Germany. But then Germany by itself was already socially conservative. So I think the transition from I would say like the Third Reich Germany to the new Stalinist Germany was quite easy, right? Because I think in terms of values that were propagated, they were very, very similar, the two systems. I think in West Germany, there was, I mean, yeah, one could argue that, say, in 1945, like there was not such an advanced stage of degenerate in the West that we witness today, obviously, with the transgender and LGBTQ nonsense. So I think America itself was still relatively conservative in 45.
Mhm.
And I think even West Germany remained sort of conservative until the 1960s when you had the 1968 like student revolt, of course, that changed the whole landscape of the West. And I think this is when the real degeneracy started. There was all downhill from there. But this, of course, didn't happen in the East, the
Mhm.
1968 phenomenon.
Yeah.
So they kept their traditional values, basically,
Mhm.
while while in the West they gradually lost them because the left they went through the what they called the march through the institutions where they occupied all the key positions in I don't know, entertainment, government, media, etc.,
Education.
education
Yeah.
to basically infiltrate society in order to manipulate the masses to follow their ideology, basically. And I would
Mhm.
say they've been very successful. We
Yeah.
can see the result today. But
They're
we,
so
we
successful that your your frame that you brought up earlier, liberal totalitarianism, doesn't make any sense to us. Those are absolutely contradiction in terms. We do not see that. Us liberals do not see our totalitarian structures at all. There our values and the values of the system line up so much that we don't see how that system imposes our values on ourselves and other people.
yeah, I guess. Well, in America, you don't. In America, you sort of have free speech to a much greater
Yeah.
extent than you have in Western Europe, where you have absolutely no free speech whatsoever. I mean, give Germany as an example. I mean, the German government or the German establishment always claims that there's free speech in Germany and that there's no censorship, but it's blatantly false, and everybody knows it's false. Actually, I take that back. I don't think everybody knows. I think a minority knows because everybody is already too far gone. I mean,
Mm.
too brainwashed to even realize that there's a sort of repression of speech in Germany.
Hmm.
I mean, people go to jail for writing posts or comments on Facebook, writing books. I mean, there are dozens of cases I could mention right
About
now.
what is it about the mid-century German Reich, or is it about current events like immigration
I
that get
think it's
people in
well, it's
trouble?
both though. It's both. So I
Yeah,
mean, if you say certain things about certain historical events,
yeah,
you get prosecuted, or if you criticize, I mean, you can criticize immigration, but it depends how you frame it and
hmm
how you criticize it. So you always have to be very careful with how you make certain arguments. I mean,
hmm
so basically what is happening, and I think that's quite alien for a lot of Americans to understand, that the average German is on the right, or conservatives, they have
yeah,
to practice constant vigilance and self-censorship, basically.
hmm
So I mean, so like when I'm speaking to you, right? Like I cannot speak freely because I don't want to go to jail in Germany, obviously. So I cannot discuss certain things or give opinions about
Well,
certain give
can
my
I
honest
test
opinion or give my honest opinion about certain topics.
can I test that? One, test the question to see if it would run afoul, and then test your willingness to run afoul. Is is there a great game being played in Germany where the powers that be are importing immigrants to East Germany to reshape the population in order to maintain power? Like is alleged that the Democrats in America are doing by importing a bunch of voters from other countries to
Yeah,
reshape
I don't.
demographics.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't think that's true, to be honest,
Okay.
because I think it's different. Because in the US, I think you have like it's almost like a 50-50 society. So I would say 50% are basically pro-Trump or say pro-MAGA, conservative. The other 50% are pro-Democrat, rather liberal. But I think in Germany the numbers are completely different because now
Mm,
now the AfD, for example, which is really the only patriotic alternative you have in Germany, now polling at 27%, the highest ever. Right, like
hmm
yesterday, I was looking at the polls. So I mean, it's not bad, right? 27%. But if you put it into perspective, it's not that impressive because it means that 73% are against it. Yes,
Yeah.
basically. I mean, it's not even half. It's
Well,
basically like a quarter. So they wouldn't even need to import these immigrants as voters. And also, in
yeah.
addition, I also read 2 days ago, there was some kind of election where only migrants were able to participate. It was about the some migrant council in some big city. I forgot the name. But we can look it up. It actually happened. So they have this election where these migrants were allowed to vote for certain parties. The migrant council, the members of the migrant council, and the majority voted for the AfD. Strangely enough, yes.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
so it's actually not true that that most of the migrants would vote against the AfD and would vote for these left liberal parties because
Yeah.
a lot of the migrants are Muslims, for example. Yes, and Muslims are
Conservative.
extremely conservative,
Yes.
the majority at least. I mean, all the ones that I know, they're very, very conservative, and they have no patience for this LGBTQ transgender nonsense, obviously. They think it's totally degenerate, it goes against their values.
hmm
And I think a lot of them, it depends what types of migrants you're talking about anyway, because a lot of the migrants have been here for generations, like the Turks, for example. But not
Yeah.
only the Turks, even Arabs and other migrants have been here for quite a long time and have citizenship. A lot of them are well integrated. And I think they also vote, a lot of them vote also for the AfD because they also don't want Germany to be swamped with more migrants that
Yeah.
only want government handouts, basically. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, I think you have the same phenomenon in the United States in the last election when like
Yeah.
the majority of Mexican men voted for Trump.
Yeah. Yeah.
So because they,
Yeah.
they don't want more illegal Mexicans coming either taking their jobs, I guess.
Yeah.
Yes, because so I don't think that's the reason why they. I mean, what you were saying that I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think there's a conspiracy to settle migrants in East Germany to undermine the voter base. I don't think that's the
Yeah.
case.
It uh, there's a phenomenon that I've read about, and that Americans are not really aware of, called denazification. It seemed like post World War II, at least on the West, Germany was subjected to a radical depatrioticization, or an expressed indoctrination to not let Germany be patriotic again, like never again. Is that true? What is your experience of America's indoctrination or re-education efforts post-war, and how do you think that has impacted the political landscape or Germany's identity?
Yeah, well, denazification process, I think was initiated. I mean, this whole denazification procedure was initiated by the Allies
Yeah.
after they started occupying Germany in
And
1945.
Stalin didn't really mess with that. Didn't worry
Well,
about that.
no, they also did in East Germany as well, but
Okay.
I think the results were different because the intentions were different. I think that the Western Allies, especially the Americans, they wanted Germany to be integrated into the Western system because the Cold War was already in full swing. So you already
Hmm.
had two camps again. You had the capitalist West and you had the communist East. And of course, they wanted Germany to be fully integrated into the capitalist West, obviously. So they wanted to instill all these values
Hmm.
that made what they thought made the capitalist West great, like democracy, well, capitalism, obviously, and
Liberalism and
sort of Western values, right?
yeah,
But not. But when you talk, well, liberalism. uh, yeah, but it was 1945. It's not like we're not talking about liberalism
yeah,
that people talk about when when they mention the word today.
yes,
So, because what was liberalism in 1945 was basically just free market economy, free speech, sort of, right,
yeah,
and freedom to travel. Uh, that you didn't, I mean, maybe freedom of association, freedom of movement, I would say.
hmm,
Because you see, I mean, you still had segregation in the United States in 45. So, and I mean, race-based laws, basically, like racist laws, literally, right, in the
hmm,
US at this time.
yeah,
So and I don't think like right after the war, like the denazification program, I don't think they were trying to extinguish like any sense of patriotism like
okay,
in the German psyche. I think they just wanted to instill a sense of loyalty in the Germans towards the big brother, the United States, and a sense
hmm,
of gratitude, basically. But because the Germans were still quite patriotic, like I said, until the 60s. Yes, that like all these parties, like the Christian Democratic Union, that are like so far left now, had basically positions then that would be considered more radical than the AfD today. Yes,
yeah,
until the 60s. So I think Germany was still, I mean, even West Germany was still fairly healthy until the 60s. Yes,
hmm,
I think what the denazification program wanted to do was basically like uh, eradicate this pure national socialist ideology like anti-Semitism, like biological racism. I think this was the main goal at the very beginning. And of course, they were extreme. I mean, I think that was not just in Germany, though. I mean, in Germany was ordered top down, but I think the same sort of process went on in other West European countries. I mean,
hmm,
and in the United States, Australia, Canada as well.
yeah,
Because pretty much like because the Nazis overdid it with the biological racism and the anti-Semitism, they basically discredited it forever. I mean, it is just this is my honest opinion. Yes, I mean
hmm,
you cannot really on you cannot resurrect this Third Reich ideology of what some people call racialism now. It will never gain traction among the general populace ever again. It's been totally discredited, in my opinion.
hmm,
It's just the way it is. And I think they were quite successful in doing this, but I think it was never really an issue until mass immigration started. Because I mean, in the late 40s or 1950s, they had some I don't know Greeks, Italians, and Turks coming to
hmm,
Germany, mostly to replace the lost manpower. I mean,
yeah,
because so many men died in the war, so they had
yeah,
to replenish basically. And Yeah, so they invited actually what they call guest workers, like the Turks, right? And then
Yeah.
a lot of Italians came, a lot of Greeks came, but it was never really like a big thing. It's not like today, right? I mean, that really started much later. I think in the 80s or 90s. Yes, this or even the early 2000s. This
Yeah.
mass immigration from third world
Is
countries.
that fettered at all, or is it unfettered? Or is the ruling party trying to stymie that or control it, or is it just open season for
Oh, it's
immigration in
open
Germany?
season,
Yeah.
right? I think,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, they're saying, I mean, they're saying that they're going to do something, but they're not really doing anything.
Why do you think
And
that is? Is it
because
an
there's no
economic?
interest, there's no interest in preventing it because of the capitalist system, right? I mean, you have like this French new right philosopher. I don't know if you're familiar with him, Alain de Benoit.
No. Hmm.
Anyway, but he has his famous quote. He said that, like, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote. He pretty much said, like, if you want to talk, I mean, if you want to talk about immigration, but not about capitalism, you better shut up. Yes, because the two are inextricably linked, basically, the two issues, mass immigration and capitalism.
Yeah.
You cannot get rid of it without basically getting rid of this liberal capitalist system in the first place. I think you can see the same phenomenon in the United States.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because I mean, even under Trump, because I saw the numbers that ICE released like a couple of weeks ago, and it's not very impressive, to be honest.
Hmm.
Yes, I mean it's
I
like a
think
couple
Obama is beating Trump in deportation department.
exactly. I think it was like what, like 150,000 or something. He has deported since he came to power in like 6 months. I mean, uh, that's quite pitiful, right? I mean, if he sticks to these numbers, he'll probably deport maybe 1 million in like 4 years.
Yeah.
And out of this million, half of them probably already back in the country anyway, because there's no secure border, there's no fence, they can just walk right back. So what's the point? And they never punish like the businesses that actually hire the illegals, like the
Yeah.
restaurants and the farms, for example.
Yeah.
They never really. These are the ones that should be severely punished. If the government were serious about tackling illegal immigration, but the
Hmm.
government is not serious about it. In no Western country is any government serious about it, because you have too many capitalist interests involved. I mean,
Hmm.
because the big companies, like in Germany, for example, they only benefit from these immigrants. And I think in Germany, you have a much bigger problem with illegal immigration because they're just basically inviting these refugees into Germany. So they're all here legally. It's not like they cross the border
Yeah.
illegally and people don't know they're here.
Yeah.
The authorities are well aware of their presence. They're just not doing anything about it. And a lot of them are unemployed, of course, and living off German taxpayers' money. But some of them, of course, do work and they do suppress wages, which is in the interests, of course, of the big companies. So the big companies, they don't lose any money, they only gain money because they don't have to pay for the ones that are unemployed. The taxpayers have to pay for them,
Yeah.
not the
Yeah.
companies, right? So the
Yeah.
companies
Yeah.
only reap the benefits, basically. I
Jeez.
think the same is true everywhere in the West. I think it's not just in Europe. I think it's the same in the United States, in my
Hmm.
opinion. I mean,
In
from what I can see.
the
And I
right
think,
wing,
sorry, yes.
the right wing in America is going through a molting period and a reassessment of what it is to be on the right or what it is to be conservative. And up until very recently, to be on the right was to be pro-capitalism. And there are thinkers and critics on the right that are saying we can't have unfettered capitalism and have these conservative values. They actually, we need national self-interest, not international self-interest. And so rethinking the connection between being conservative and being capitalist is a very novel point of discussion. And I think the lowest level of that discussion is to take any criticism of capital or capitalism as de facto promotion of communism. And there has to be more options available. And I'm wondering if your studies and your experience of Russia and other countries and your current critique of capital with regard to mass immigration, if you have any sense of what values should supersede capital and how capitalism should be a servant to something higher than itself, or if capitalism is it's either that or communism or some other form of tyranny.
Well, I mean, you can have capitalism and tyranny because, I mean, you have it in Western Europe, basically. I mean, look at Britain, right? I mean, it's officially capitalist and it's a total tyranny, in my opinion, in Britain. I mean, Germany is not far off, or France, because, like I said, they don't have a free speech, no freedom of expression, which is, in
Or
my opinion, the
association.
hallmark of a tyranny. I mean, if people have to self-censor themselves, if they continuously have to be paranoid because they're afraid that what they say might get them into legal trouble. I mean, this is not a free country, right? You're not in a free country if you think like this.
Mm-hmm.
This is the hallmark of a tyranny. It is a definition of a tyranny. And this is what I mean by liberal tyranny, because these societies in Western Europe, they preach liberal values, right? Like tolerance, diversity, gay rights, transgender rights, immigrant rights, freedom of movement, open borders, but they silence their critics with the most draconian measures, basically. And
Mm-hmm.
this, for me, is the definition of a liberal tyranny.
Mm-hmm.
Well, we talk about economic system. Well, yes, so a lot of people on the right think there's only two options. So there's capitalism or there's communism. But I mean, they call everybody a communist because they don't really understand what communism really is. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
it's like the left that calls everybody a racist, basically,
Or
or the
fascist.
media, the media that calls everything a genocide. Yes,
Mm.
like these
Yes.
are words that have lost all meaning. Communism, genocide, racism, it's meaningless, right? I mean, the media continue, I mean, the Western media continuously claims that Russia is committing genocide in Ukraine. I'm like, but I mean, it's obviously false. Like, it's not even an argument. They're obviously not committing genocide. Yes. Or like I mean, if every mild criticism of immigration is racist immediately, obviously it's not racist. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Or anybody who criticizes the sort of Manchester capitalism that these right-wing people propagate is automatically a communist. It's nonsense,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So, and of course, you have economic systems that are very successful. I mean, I would point to China as a prime example, yes, which is nominally communist, right? But it's not really communist anymore,
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
yes. Because I think it's a fusion of basically a socialist system and a capitalist system, and a very successful one. So I think they took all the positive elements of capitalism and all the positive elements of socialism, and I think that's what makes it
Well, up
uh,
until you get to the
so
free
thriving.
speech,
Sorry?
up until you get to the free speech in
Well, free
China.
speech. Well, that's
Okay.
that's another issue. But I'm talking about from a purely
Economics.
economic point of view now.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, because you look at these videos and of life in China today, what's going on, and especially in the big cities, it's like a science fiction movie. I mean, they're probably the most advanced society on earth, it seems to me,
Hmm.
in terms of technology and use of technology. So I don't understand why the West is so far behind. Well, I do understand there are lots of reasons, obviously.
Hmm.
And but what I don't understand is like why so many, say, for example, MAGA people in the United States, especially people with low income, Republicans, always vote against their own interests, right? Like why if you live somewhere in a trailer park, right, and you have no health insurance, why would you vote against socialized healthcare? It makes no sense to me because you yourself would benefit from it. Why is this idea of social healthcare such a great evil
Well,
in the
if you look
minds of
at
so
how
many conservatives?
if you look at how socialized healthcare is working out in Canada, which is our closest European-ish neighbor, it's not really working out.
Yeah, well, it
And
depends, though. It depends. Uh, I know the arguments that the right makes. I mean, the right says, okay, if you have socialized healthcare, the service is crap, the treatment is not as good, etc. Which are valid arguments. I'm not discounting them. I'm just saying, but at least you get some form of treatment, even without money. But in the US or in like hyper-capitalist societies in general, like if you don't have health insurance and you have some serious illness like cancer, for example, you probably get some basic treatment, but you don't really get the full treatment that a human being deserves,
mhm,
and you will die as a result. Yes, in a purely capitalist system, and
mm,
or I'm not just cancer, even like what if you have like I don't know a toothache, right? And but you don't have money to go to the dentist and you don't have insurance, so you take Tylenol, right? To
mhm.
hope that the pain will go away and not come back. And if it does come back and you have to go to the dentist, it's completely overpriced. They will charge you, I don't know, $3,000 or whatever for a root canal, $5,000. But you
Yeah,
don't have any, you make like 1,000 a month or whatever, but
yeah,
you also have to pay rent and buy food. So you're like in debt for the next 10 years because of one dentist visit.
yeah.
I mean, how is that a good system? It's not a good system, right?
Yeah, well, America's really big and diverse, and European countries can be a little bit more socialist because they are a little bit more homogenous, and insofar as they have in-group preference and they care for each other, and they work hard and they are smart. So you have to have the right population to implement socialism, not just a more or less homogenous group of people, but a highly functional group of people who are willing to work hard to keep the system working. And then some
Yeah,
sort of
well,
incentive structure on top of that
okay.
to ensure that you don't have brain drain where people move to a hyper capitalist system if they are in that top 1% of surgeons or financiers or something. To keep the best and the brightest, you do have to have an incentive structure that'll keep them in your country rather than fleeing to opportunity. So there's a lot of different factors that go on, but I think at root it is um, any sort of socialism is predicated on a people caring about themselves and their leadership caring about the people. And that could be monarchist. It doesn't have to be a socially democratic system, but that mutual care and regard for the population by the population itself, by the people who take care of the population, and by the elite that rule the population. That is the only way I can see that socialism can scale. And it probably can only scale to the size of a state or of a country the size of a European country.
Yeah, I sort of disagree though. I
Hmm.
think it's about priorities because the money is already there to have universal health care in all these Western countries like the United States. I mean, the United States literally spends trillions on
Yeah.
wars
Yeah.
abroad that
Well,
literally no American citizen benefits from at all, right? Like they occupied Afghanistan for 20 years and then pulled out with the
yeah,
same people in power that they went in to oust, you
yeah,
know?
yeah,
And they
yeah.
literally spend trillions in Afghanistan. It's
Yes.
like some grotesque sum of money.
Like Russia
And this
before
is
them.
all,
I mean, not quite
yeah, I mean,
trillions,
but
but
this is all taxpayers' money, and you don't have a brain drain as a result. People still pay taxes in the US, and I don't see a huge brain drain because of them paying taxes. You just have to redirect the money. Instead of wasting it on useless wars, you could build free hospitals and provide free healthcare. You wouldn't even
yeah,
have to raise
yeah,
taxes.
yeah.
So
That is
you wouldn't have a brain drain.
that is a particular sickness that infects the United States government that was inherited by our position in World War II. I think we took over the world and then kept on having to do that, or the people that got in charge were kept sailing that boat forward in a certain direction. Um,
Yeah,
and
well, in Germany, everything's falling apart. Uh, I mean, the whole infrastructure is falling apart. German trains don't run on time. Sometimes they don't run
really,
at all. The German train, I mean, you should look this up on Google. Like German trains have become the laughing stock of Europe, basically, because they're
why?
so bad. It's just so bad. I don't know why. I mean, there are lots of factors. I discuss this all the time with different people, but nobody
Yeah.
really knows exactly why. I guess it's a combination of different factors, but they're literally notoriously late and canceled all the time,
Hmm.
non-stop. I mean, Switzerland,
Well,
which
you can't run your party on getting the trains to run on time, not in Germany.
so
So,
yeah. So Switzerland borders Germany, and there are these high-speed trains that travel from, like, I don't know, big cities in Germany to big cities in Switzerland, and they have to cross the border because Switzerland is not in the European Union. So there's a really a proper border
hmm.
with passport control and stuff. And now, because the German trains are so notoriously late, the Swiss government actually decided that if a German train is late more than 6 minutes at the Swiss border, they're not allowed in, right? They have to turn back because it messes up the entire Swiss train schedule otherwise. And it happens
Wow.
all the time, apparently, that they're late and turn back. I mean,
Wow.
that's how bad it is.
Yeah.
Yes. And I mean, and yeah, the roads are, I mean, in bad shape, especially in the small towns, and the governments always complain they don't have money to renovate, I don't know, castles or fix the roads or
Yeah.
fix the train system. No money, we don't have any money. Yeah, but at the same time, they spend billions and billions every year on these refugees from different parts of the world. I
Hmm.
mean, so the money is actually there, right? It's
Hmm.
just not allocated
Hmm.
correctly, in my opinion. Yes, and I think this is the main problem. I don't think it's a problem because it's socialism, right? Because it's not really socialism to provide, like, basic necessities to your citizens, like healthcare, right? I mean,
Hmm.
I would consider this like a basic necessity that should be provided by the government, especially if you're obligated to pay taxes. If you don't get free healthcare, why the hell do you even pay taxes? What's the point? If you don't get proper infrastructure, you don't get healthcare, where does your tax money go? What benefit do you get from paying taxes? You should get at least some benefit from paying taxes,
Hmm.
in my
Hmm.
opinion. Yes.
Hmm.
I mean, and I know bombing back that does not really benefit me. Yes,
Hmm.
like when I
No.
pay taxes,
Yeah.
or
No.
does it? I don't think so. Yes.
Well, it
So,
depends. Can we switch? I think it's not going to be. It'll be a switch of the conversation.
okay.
But in the very beginning, you were talking about Dugan and the what you said, the Euro-Asianist movement. Dugan is a
Actually,
fascinating
sorry,
character.
I have to correct you though. It's not Euro-Asian, it's just
Is it
Eurasian because
Eurasian? Okay.
it's like the Eurasian landmass, so to
Yeah.
speak.
Okay. So where does that where's the border just generally? And this is a very basic question. Like, would that
Well,
be somewhere Eastern Europe or all of Europe?
it's all of Europe and all of Asia basically, which is
Okay.
Eurasia.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
So I
And
mean, it was because if you look at, well, because people have to differentiate between continent and landmass, right? Because there's no European landmass. There's no Asian landmass because they're connected. It's the Eurasian landmass,
yeah, yeah.
right? I mean, this is the idea behind Eurasianism, basically, that all these, like, the world's greatest cultures, civilizations, they all sprung from this Eurasian landmass, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm. So, what are the qualities of the Eurasianist movement, or what is it that they are seeking to prioritize?
Well, I think the today's Eurasianist movement, and I think Alexander Dugin, of course, is the most famous proponent of this movement, is, well, it's multipolarity. Yes. Well, the idea that different civilizations have different traditions, different customs, and they should be allowed to express them freely without being uh, pressured into conforming to some sort of universal standard, because this seems to be the case today. Because today, the Western standard has become the universal standard that everybody in the world, no matter where they live or no matter what society they have, should conform to this Western model, right? Which is, well, liberalism, parliamentary democracy, freedom of speech, women's rights, gay rights, transgender rights. I mean,
Hmm.
this is what everybody has to follow or has to conform to. And, well, the Eurasianists say this is wrong. and people should not be forced to conform to values which are alien to their rooted traditions, their
Hmm.
own rooted traditions.
Hmm.
So people should be free to practice what they deem important and not what others try to force on them, so to speak.
Hmm. Hmm. The issue with that freedom of expression is that certain customs and belief systems are evangelical and desire to export themselves and then conquer territories and subject other peoples to their control. That constantly happens. How in a Eurasianist movement, or how do the Eurasianists solve the problem of conflicting values?
Well,
Because they
they,
do
I,
conflict.
well, I don't think it's a problem because it is not going to be something. I mean, they don't envision some kind of hippie world, right, in the future
Okay.
where everybody just gets along and
Yeah.
there will be no aggression and no wars, because that is obviously a fiction and it will never happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I call it Darwinian multipolarity because Darwinism is still a reality. And the will to power and the will to dominate is still a reality
Yeah.
because it's still biology. We're still driven by biology. So the difference will be you will not have one global hegemon imposing its values on everybody else and successfully doing so because there's no real resistance. Because I think the whole global landscape has changed because now you have resistance to this Western hegemon because
Hmm.
you have different emerging poles or poles that are already in existence right now. I mean, I think right now you have four poles. And according to the multipolar theory, a pole is a civilization state. So it's not just a civilization, but it has to be a state, a sovereign state as well. Because, like, for example, Islam is not a pole, right? Because there is no Islamic civilization state. There are several Islamic nations,
Hmm.
but they're not unified into one imperial structure. Therefore, they're not powerful enough to be counted as a pole and they're not sovereign. So I think right now there are only four poles. So you have the United States, obviously, as a pole.
Hmm.
The Russian Federation is another pole. I think India is the third one, and China is the fourth one. So, because these four entities are all civilizations, but they're all sovereign states. And what makes them sovereign? Well, nuclear weapons. That's what makes them sovereign. You
Hmm.
cannot be a sovereign state actor without nuclear weapons. It's not possible. Yes.
Hmm. Well, where does that leave Europe?
Well, it's not a pole. It's not, it's because it's neither sovereign nor is it a civilization state. You have the European Union, and only France has its own nuclear weapons in the European Union. Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, I mean, Germany, there are nuclear weapons in Germany, but they're all American nuclear weapons controlled by the Americans, not by the Germans.
Yeah.
And well, Germany is a colonized country. It's an occupied country. It's a vassal state of the United States. And I
Yeah.
would argue that not just Germany, but pretty much the entire European Union is a vassal of the United States. And I mean, was it just like a couple of days ago, yesterday or the day before, when the French president Macron was in New York and he wanted to go meet Trump, driving through, I was riding in a car on the streets of New York, but then all of a sudden, like there was some roadblock because of Trump's motorcade. So Macron had to get out of the car and call Trump and say, I can't continue because the road is blocked because of you. And I think Trump just walk. And Macron actually walked, right? So he walked through the streets of New York to meet Trump. I
Hmm.
mean, doesn't it just show
Yeah.
the status of these European leaders?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's grotesque, right?
Yeah.
Or when all of them met Trump at the White House to discuss the whole Ukraine thing, they all had to wait in front of his office, like school children, basically, to be invited in.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
so Europe is not a pole.
Yeah.
Western Europe is in total decline. It's becoming totally irrelevant. Nobody cares about Europe anymore. I mean,
Yeah.
hardly anybody cares about the US because it's not the unipolar hegemon anymore. I mean, just today, actually, a couple of hours ago, was on the news that like some Chinese ship just went to Crimea, yes, which is, according to the United States and Western Europe, occupied Ukraine. But according to Russia, it is part of the Russian Federation. So now the Chinese ships are going there, ignoring Western sanctions.
Hmm.
The United States told India not to buy Russian oil, but India told the US, you know, screw you, we're going to do it anyway.
Hmm.
I mean,
Hmm.
these countries are losing respect for the West because the West does not project the same kind of power anymore, and they
Hmm.
can
Hmm.
sense it.
Can you help me make sense from your point of view of the Ukraine conflict? What is it really describing from a multipolarity lens? What does it show us?
Well, I I think right now what is happening is that well, for Russia it is an existential issue because they view Ukraine as an integral part of their sphere of influence. I mean, basically their territory. And I think the whole conflict was fomented by the West, was triggered by the West, especially again the United States, but also the Western Europeans and NATO, when they basically egged on the Ukrainian government to act against the Russian separatists in Ukraine, because the Russian separatists, I mean, the Russian separatists living on then Ukrainian territory felt discriminated against by the central Ukrainian government, were not allowed to speak the Russian language properly, were
Hmm.
not allowed to practice their Russianness, basically, were forced to conform to Ukrainian standards that were basically alien to them. Um, and they didn't want to be part of Ukraine anymore, right? So they declared independence. Russia recognized the independence. Ukraine, of course, didn't recognize it. The West didn't recognize it. And you had like constant attacks by the Ukrainians. According to the Russian narrative, the Russians had to go into Ukraine to protect these Russian minorities, basically, their
Hmm.
Russian brothers and sisters, so to speak. But I think, according to this narrative, also, it's a much bigger conflict because it is a proxy war between a NATO or the United States and Russia, right? So it's basically a war between the unipolar hegemon desperately trying to hold on to its fading power and the newly emerging multipolar world declaring its independence from
Hmm.
this hegemon, so to speak.
Why does, and this is an odd question from an American to a German, why does America care so much about Ukraine? Why is that such a, why did my Congress people celebrate the leader and kowtow to Zelensky and make this big effort, and it just captured the American imagination like a sporting event that unfortunately involves sending an entire generation of young men through a meat grinder. But why Ukraine? Why Russia? Why is that, like a hold on from the Cold War? Why do we care? What does it benefit us? Who owns that parcel of land?
Well, I think it's about global dominance because the United States wants to stay dominant in the world, and
Hmm.
the Eurasian heartland, especially Ukraine, is extremely important because it's on Russia's doorstep. So if
Hmm.
they control Ukraine and various other countries
Okay.
from the former Soviet Union, which are in the Russian sphere of influence, they can weaken Russia and encircle Russia basically and project their power.
Hmm. Hmm. Is there a proper way for America to accept this unipolar world, or the multipolar world?
Well, I think Trump does not want to accept it, but he's actually, I would say, inadvertently promoting it and speeding up the process
Hmm.
of the formation of the multipolar world, whether he wants to or not, through his actions, like with the whole tariffs and sanctions. I think he basically alienated India and drove it into the arms of China, just like Western Europe alienated Russia basically needlessly and drove it also into the arms of China,
Mm.
thereby, I would say, strengthening the notion of sovereignty, which is becoming the critical term in the multipolar world because it is all about sovereignty. Because
Hmm.
the Russian Federation continuously insists that it is a sovereign entity and it will not be interfered with in internal affairs. And same with China and India. And I think this is a rather new phenomenon because in the
Mm.
past, a lot of them would say they're sovereign, but they weren't really sovereign. They would still do the beating of the West. And I think, well, to answer your question, yes, like what should Americans do about it? I think ideally for America would be to extricate itself from the role of sort of like the global policeman and focus on its own problems and
Hmm.
its own domestic issues. Because, as I said earlier, there's absolutely no benefit for the average American citizen in America's adventures abroad.
Hmm.
Yes. Like, how
Hmm.
does the American benefit from the from the unending U.S. support for Israel's actions in Gaza,
Hmm.
for example?
Hmm.
Yes. Like
Where
how is it good for the average American?
where would that leave Europe if America withdrew to, making itself great for itself rather than great
Well, I don't know. I think
payroll?
there's just two avenues for Europe, right? It's like either total downfall with endless immigration, a total collapse of the social systems there, because obviously it cannot be financed forever.
Hmm.
Or the other more optimistic scenario would be like if the Americans totally left Europe alone, that Europe would be also forced to focus on itself basically and build
Hmm.
up its own army and make itself sovereign basically and build up its strength and hopefully become a pole in this new multipolar world
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
future.
The European Union attempted to probably try to create a pole out of Europe, but it didn't seem to stick. It didn't seem to work. What do you think of the likelihood or the hurdles for European solidarity, or is Europe just too different from one country to the next to really be uh, encapsulated within a sovereignty, a single sovereignty?
Yeah, but this kind of European solidarity is not promoted in the European Union because the European Union sees itself as some sort of universal construct that represents humanity and not just Europeans. And this
Okay.
is why they promote mass immigration from non-European countries into the European Union because they don't, for them, it makes no difference if it's
Hmm.
I don't know, a person from Africa, Arabia, or Europe living in its capital cities. So it is basically an anti-European project, the European Union. I mean, the
Hmm.
structure itself, I think, is quite good because it does unify Europe by getting rid of borders, allowing free movement. I mean, French people can move to Germany and work there, rent an apartment without any
Hmm.
kind of I don't know, special permits or whatever. It's like in the US going from like I don't know from Louisiana to Mississippi or something, just from state to state.
Hmm.
Which in my opinion is a positive thing. So it basically laid the groundwork for a future imperial structure if it ever regains its sense of true pan-European purpose that is actually pro-European.
Yeah. Yeah, that the lack of purpose, I think, is at root cause of a lot of the degeneracy of the West. A lack of identity and a lack of teleology, or lack of self and a lack of future. And gaining that or regaining that is a tall order because since the World War II, Europe has been basically occupied and controlled by these other sovereigns and stuff. So I don't are the parties like the AFD and other nationalist movements? Do you think that they can form the building blocks for a European empire or an imperial Europe, even though they're nationalist in their structure right now?
Yeah, the short answer would be no. Uh, I'm rather pessimistic when it comes to just parliamentary politics because you have what is called the Melonization effect, because you have like Giorgia Meloni, the Italian leader, who's supposedly right wing. And before she got elected, she made a bunch of promises, like to end immigration, to reduce immigration at least drastically, to clean up Italy. But she's done none of this, right? And she's been in power for a while, and she's done absolutely nothing. So people call it a Melonization effect. We should be very careful about the Melonization effect, meaning that if you have parties or candidates that promise a lot, but then don't implement it once they get to power. And I know that's the question, though, right? Because now the AfD, they're not in power, and they're not even near any kind of real power. They make a lot of promises what they would do if they were in power. The question is, would they actually do these things, or are they just saying it? Yes,
Mm-hmm,
that's the
hmm.
question. I mean, a lot of people say a lot of things when they're not in power. I mean, Trump said a lot of things like mass deportations. I don't see. I'm not seeing any mass deportations,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm.
I mean, I see some deportations, like some, I don't know, raiding a kitchen in Los Angeles or something for the TV crew, like makes for
Yeah.
good TV. It's very effective.
Pokemon
People
commercials.
watch it,
Yeah.
think like, oh, finally things are getting done. But things aren't really getting done, right? On the scale that was promised. Yes.
Hmm.
It just all
Hmm.
drops in the bucket, really. So I
Hmm.
mean that's the question. And I'm not so optimistic because I think there are so many factors involved, especially when you talk about immigration, that even if the AfD came to power and even if it wanted to do something, it probably wouldn't even be able to do it because there's so many other factions involved.
Hmm. Hmm. It's what is your work focusing on right recently or right now? Do you?
Right now, I have just started a new publishing company called Multipolar Press. We're going to start publishing books probably in October.
Oh, wow. Okay. And chief among them is Dugan, but are there other thinkers that you're collecting?
Well,
And
we're not going to publish Dugin books.
no.
Like we have a website right now called multipolarpress.com on
Okay.
which we publish articles by Dugin and
Okay.
various other authors from different countries related to the topic of multipolarity from a, I don't know, political, historical, and philosophical perspective.
Hmm.
But the publishing house that will also publish books will not be publishing Dugin at the beginning, at least, but publish a variety of other authors that explore the topic of multipolarity, again, from a cultural, philosophical, historical, political perspective,
Hmm.
as a cinema, art, literature, a poetry, possibly even, I don't
Hmm.
know, novels, nonfiction. I mean, I have a lot of ideas and sort of a lot of books in a pipeline already. I will be announcing them quite soon.
What fascinates you about multipolarity, or do you think the fascination's the wrong term, and it just aligns with what you see the world as the real politic of the current world?
Well, yeah, what fascinates me is the opportunities that multipolarity can bring because we are living in a multipolar world or in the formation of a multipolar world. So I mean it's a historic moment, and I'm not the only one who sees that. I mean Marco Rubio several months ago said it. JD Vance said it at his speech at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. He
Hmm.
pretty much said that America's days as a global hegemon are over, and Americans have to accept the fact that the United States will be just one civilization among many. And I think this brings with it many opportunities for mankind
Hmm.
as a whole to advance. Because if you only follow one path, then you only get one opportunity. But if you follow a lot of different paths, more
Hmm.
opportunities will open up for you.
Hmm. The hubris of liberal Westernism is that we our greatest thinkers or at least orators. One of them, Martin Luther King Jr., said that the arc of his the arc of history is long, but it bends towards justice. We have this very just idea of the end of history, of progressivism, as of equality becoming equity, becoming all these different iterations, and to think of it think of any country going any different direction, we can only think of it as our direction or backwards or totalitarianism, even though we do practice soft totalitarianism so far as we can get away with it. What are the other options? Like, what is another option than Western liberal democracy? Is there a, well, I guess we brought up China. I don't know how well India is doing. I don't really understand where Russia is headed, but Russia will certainly have a different character. But will it have a different, goal or aim of its
Well,
civilization?
I think different civilizations have different aims. And I think there are many different options. I mean, you can look at North Korea, for example. I mean, it's not a poll, but if you just look at it as a state and the system of North Korea, I mean, it's often criticized by the West because, I mean, it's totalitarian, it's a dictatorship, and so on. But this is maybe just not for us, but maybe it is the ideal system for Koreans. Who are we to judge, right? And it's the
Hmm.
same with Afghanistan, the Taliban. I mean, I think the Taliban is quite popular among the Afghan populace and has majority support. And I think the Taliban rules in accordance with the mentality of the Afghan people. So I think their rule is just. And
Hmm.
who are we to judge their rule and what they prefer, what kind of government? I mean, that's the whole idea of multipolarity. People should choose their own government, what fits their ethnic or national character the best. And I mean, that's why China, right? So they have this social credit system. They're based on sort of like on a Confucian ethos, but I think it suits the Chinese people perfectly. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so successful. And I've talked to a lot of Chinese people. They're very happy with the system that they have. And it's the same
Hmm.
with the Russians, right? I mean, the Russians, I mean, nominally they're a democracy, right? But it's just a fashionable term, democracy. Everybody wants to call themselves a democracy, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Hopefully, it will fade this trend soon because it's quite ridiculous. I mean, Russia is officially, of course, it's a democracy. They call themselves a sovereign democracy. But
Hmm.
I think Putin is basically like a tsar, right? I mean, inside the country, he has more power than the American president. I mean,
Hmm.
because Trump can't just unilaterally decide what is going to be done in the United States. He will always have some sort of opposition from different, I mean, from Congress and
Yeah.
I mean, various other parties. But I think I think Putin has no such opposition in Russia, right? Maybe nominal opposition, but no real opposition. So I think that he has much, much more power to decide things in Russia, like a Tsar, basically. So I mean, and
Hmm.
some people argue, like Dugin has argued before, that Russia should just drop the pretenses and basically declare Putin the new Tsar and
Hmm.
bring back the monarchy officially. And why not? Maybe not. I mean, maybe it's not a bad idea because Russians basically always lived under such a monarchical system. Yes, they
Yeah.
never really lived under a liberal democracy.
No, even during the communist phase, there was a guy, a
Exactly.
strong man
Right.
on the top every single time.
Well, it was basically Stalin. Some people called him the Red Tsar. Yes.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
Well,
mean,
where would
it
you
was
like to live? What
continuity.
will be your ideal society? You're probably more democratic leaning or liberal leaning,
Yeah, probably.
assuming.
Yeah. If you talk about me personally, I mean, I like the American system to be honest, without the degeneracy. So you'd have a
Hmm.
sort of a republic with, I would say, democratic values, free speech, but a strong, I would say, conservative base.
Hmm.
Yes, without trying to ban other opinions or outright outlaw parties that oppose your worldview.
Hmm.
So
Strong
yeah,
enough to accept
I would
competition.
yeah, so I would go for the more free society.
In your studies of political philosophy or political science, what is the role of religion in forming these sovereign nations? Like, at what point does ideology or belief, faith, undergird the ideology and undergird the power structure? And is that an essential part, or is it just kind of window dressing?
Yeah, I guess it depends on the society again. I mean, if you look at Europe or European history, you had the Middle Ages, and you had the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, it was called the Holy Roman Empire. I mean, some people argue it was neither holy nor Roman. Yes, but the point is, it was it was quite theocratic in the Middle Ages. I mean, the
Yeah.
church had a lot of power over people's lives. Whether that was a good thing or a bad thing, well, that's debatable. I think it's a sort of a combination of both. And
Hmm.
I think sort of a religious foundation gives people a sort of moral compass and a guidance in terms of what values should be cherished and what kind of practices should be deemed immoral.
Hmm.
So and because I think the average person, or if you talk about sort of like the masses, so to speak, they're sort of lost usually if they don't have some sort of guiding ideology. And I think if religion is this guiding ideology that places the spiritual well-being above crass materialism, I think it's of great benefit to
Hmm.
society as a
Hmm.
whole.
Do you think that Europe can, if given the chance to find its own sovereignty, if a return to Christianity is going to be necessary, or if it'll kind of snap into Islamism, or if multi-religion uh, diversity can actually form a strong state?
Yeah, I
Can
think
it gel together with all these different religions? This kind of liberal world order.
yeah, but well, I think Christianity is not very popular in Europe at the moment anymore. I'm not sure if there's a sort of revival of Christianity in Western Europe. I'm not seeing it. In Eastern
Mhm.
Europe, you can see it,
Yeah.
like in Russia or in Central Europe, like Poland and Hungary. But in Western Europe, not so much. And it's also quite politicized.
Mm.
I know my children they sing in the choir. So sometimes they sing in well they sing in the church choir. So sometimes I attend like a church service because my children they sing during the service. But it's quite unbearable because it's highly politicized and you have like the priest or I don't know the minister speaking to the congregation, saying things like, well, love is the most important thing. It doesn't matter if it's love between a man and a woman, or man and a man, or woman and a woman. I'm like, this is not even Christian, right? Like, if a priest can say this to his congregation, it tells me that Christianity is dead as a religion because this priest obviously has not either the priest hasn't read his own holy book, the Bible, or he has read it and doesn't believe in it. And if he doesn't believe in it, then why is he a priest? Right?
Hmm.
Because if you as a believing Christian propagate homosexuality in church, you cannot be an authentic Christian, in my opinion. And I'm not really opposed to homosexuals at all, right? Like, I don't care if people are gay. I don't care what they do at home. Like, I just don't like this nonstop propagation of it, especially in a church, because it is obviously a violation of Christian principles laid out in the Bible.
Hmm.
So even the Christianity that still exists in Western Europe has been thoroughly perverted, in my opinion, and is highly politicized in a left-wing liberal fashion. I think this is not the case, say, in Orthodox countries like Russia, for example, where you have the Orthodox Church being still extremely traditionalist and opposed to this sort of degenerate influences.
Hmm.
But I think in the West, in the United States, the same. I mean, at least the Protestant churches in the US, I mean, the ones that I've encountered have also been infiltrated by this quote unquote progressive ideology. Yes.
Hmm.
So either
Hmm.
you'd need a hardcore purification of Christianity to make it healthy again in the first place, and then you would also need to somehow teach Christianity to the young to make it appealing so they would start following it again. on
Mm-hmm.
a large scale. I'm not sure that's in the realm of possibilities at the moment. I mean, if you talk about Islam, yes, I mean, I'm quite optimistic that Islam will probably be more successful than Christianity if Europe continues on its current path.
Mm-hmm.
Because I read about this like convergence of Europeans to Islam all the time. And I actually did a podcast a couple of weeks ago with a Muslim friend of mine and an American guy about Houellebecq's book Submission, the novel, where he talks about the Islamic takeover of France. I'm not sure if you read this novel. If not, you
No.
should read it. It's a masterpiece because it is not clear cut, right? I mean, it was a huge bestseller in France or even globally. You know Houellebecq, the French writer
Mm-hmm.
who he wrote another book called Serotonin, was quite famous. Anyway, so he wrote this book about I know France in the near future that you have like the Le Pen's party coming close to power, but then you also have an Islamic party, and in the end, the Islamic party wins, the French nationalists lose. And France becomes officially an Islamic state, basically. But
Mm-hmm.
but it is not dystopian in the book. It's not described as like a scary dystopia because he describes it in such a way that it could be read almost as like a propaganda piece that is in favor of like an Islamic takeover of France, right? But at the same time could also be viewed as a subtle critique because the Muslim guy that was on the podcast with me, like he loves this book. So, oh, that's great. I hope that will happen. It's wonderful how he describes the future Eurabia. Yes. So, so, so,
Eurabia.
so I'm in two minds about this, right? So I'm thinking, right? So, I mean, if you think about it, so you have Christianity, which, I mean, it didn't spring from European soil, right? Christianity, it is essentially, I mean, a Middle Eastern religion because it came from the Middle East, just like
Well, via
Islam.
via Greece. Yeah.
I mean, it was heavily Europeanized, obviously. Yes. I mean, it incorporated a lot of pagan elements. And as you said, well, like Aristotelian ethics and Plato's ideas, it became its own thing. But the roots are still in the Middle East, like the roots, yes, of
Mm-hmm.
Christianity,
Mm-hmm.
undeniably so. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just saying, well, that's how it is. Islam, of course, also from the Middle East, but both Christianity and Islam are universal religions. So they don't differentiate who converts to their faith, basically. So they're not in any shape or form ethnocentric. So I think Islam would not be such a bad thing if it maybe manifested itself as the majority religion in Europe, maybe, because maybe that's the only way for Europe to rid itself of, I don't know, low birth rates, uh, overall degeneracy and decadence, and
Mm-hmm.
and find a way back to a sort of healthy attitude and a healthy a traditional lifestyle. I mean,
Hmm.
these are some arguments that are made, even by, I would say, some people on the right.
Hmm. Fascinating. Just really hard to get my head around. Are you a musician too, or just you just like hanging out with
It's
the
just,
cello?
it's my family. They're all musicians. I'm not a
Oh yeah,
musician.
not you.
Uh,
So you're just
uh,
surrounded by
yeah.
savants.
Well, my daughter plays the cello. She's been playing the cello for many years.
Hmm.
That's
Hmm.
my younger daughter. The older one plays piano.
Hmm. So your publishing companies, you guys have a website right now, and you're going to be going into print in the fall. Like, where can people find it, and what can they expect coming out soon?
Well, now you can check out the website
Hmm.
multipolarpress.com. I know where we publish daily articles by a variety of authors exploring different topics. Yeah, the first books will come out in October, I would say. I can't say too much about the titles yet because I'm
Okay.
still deciding which titles will be prioritized, but I'll be announcing them quite soon.
Hmm. Hmm. One more question? What is best in life?
Or should I use the Conan quote? I'm not sure. Yes.
Fun.
Um, I don't know what's best in life. I would say to lead a fulfilling life, to leave some kind of legacy, to create something
Hmm.
that is durable, preferably something that other people enjoy or admire and that will last for generations. Yes.
Mhm.
And if you talk about your personal life, I'm going to talk about my personal life. What is good in life, of course, is, well, you should enjoy your life without infringing on the rights of other peoples.
Mhm.
I know, I would say travel, new experiences, uh, exploring new ideas, new philosophies, be open to other people's opinions, maybe change your own opinions if other opinions are more convincing than yours. So always be flexible and try to get along, not just with people who agree with you, but also with people who don't agree with you. It will make your life easier. And well, eat good food and in general, enjoy what life has to offer, all the bounties for as long as you can, because we don't know how long we are on this earth,
Mhm.
obviously.
Mhm. You seem to have a contentious relationship with your homeland, Germany. Do, what is
Yes,
the
right.
what is the complexity of your love for your nation? What is that root,
Eh,
the
yeah,
strife?
well, I wouldn't say that I love my nation. Um, so I like the quote by Nietzsche, who said, "I might not be a good German, but I'm a good European."
Hmm.
Yes. So because I mean he also had this ambivalent relationship with Germany, and I sort of I can understand what he felt because I feel very similar. So on one hand, because I'm German, I of course respect the heritage, the great literature, the poets, the medieval cathedrals, the old towns, the castles. It's all quite marvelous, of course. But then, of course, you have this German mentality, the average German mentality that I cannot identify with, which is
Hmm.
this mentality, this mentality to a tendency towards extreme conformism, I would say. Yes, for
Hmm.
good or for bad. So, I mean, I think this is why in Germany you have this phenomenon of, say, you have like the Third Reich, where everybody or the majority were like diehard Nazis. Then the Third Reich collapsed. Then you had the German Democratic Republic, where everybody, or the majority, were diehard communists. In West Germany, they were diehard Democrats. Today, they're diehard liberals
Hmm.
and follow everything to the letter. Extreme, right? And you have this extreme governments all the time as well that try to
Hmm.
enforce the new ideology and condemn the old one and want to have nothing to do with it as if it happened like on Mars or another planet. Yes, like the
Huh.
Third Reich happened, right? So you had 12 years of the Nazis in power. I mean, they created massive structures, buildings, sculptures, art, etc. People ignore it, right? It's not discussed. Nobody discusses Nazi art. It's not shown in the galleries. People pretend Nazi literature doesn't exist. It's not being sold. Same, they do the same with like East German literature now, East German art. Not to the extreme as they do with Nazi art, but they also try to ignore it, pretend it didn't exist. They tore down like I don't know the different Marx statues or Lenin statues or other German communist leaders, covered up the murals, erasing their own history, basically. And now they're in the liberal mode, so only liberalism is the correct way. Everything else is wrong and was always wrong. Reminds me sort of 1984, I would say, like
We're
the
always at
Orwellian
war.
idea. We were always at war with Eurasia.
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And that's what it's like. Liberalism was always the only way. Now they have this pathological obsession with democracy. Everything is about democracy, right?
Yeah.
The teachers taking the children on a class trip to Berlin, and they're going to visit an old East German prison, and they're going to get a guided tour there so they can see well, this is what the teacher said, right? So they can see what a totalitarian system was like, and they can appreciate our democratic system even more, right? As if the current system doesn't have prisons or political prisoners.
Hmm.
I mean, this is the German extreme, and in the last century, it went through lots of different phases, and in every single phase, the Germans thought this one is the only right one, but then it ended, and then the next one was the only right one, and it's sort of crazy, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't think other peoples that I can think of have this extreme conformism with everything that they do, even though what they do changes all the time or seems to change all the time, like every couple of decades.
Is there a tempering force to that tendency in Germans?
Yeah, I think not, and that's the
Yeah,
problem, right? I
yeah,
don't think there's any tempering force.
yeah.
Uh,
Like
well,
conservatism in some way,
you have
or
a vocal minority that oppose it, of course, but they're not strong enough and they're not numerous enough to make any change possible, at least at the moment.
hmm, hmm. And then wouldn't they just go too far in that direction?
Mm, quite possibly. I don't know. It depends, right? I mean, you have some reasonable ones,
Yeah,
but then you never know, right? What's going to happen once they're in
yeah.
power? Who knows? Yes.
Constantin, thank you very much for showing up and chatting with me and teaching me about your country and your life. And I'm really looking forward to checking out your work. I'll link it in the description. Um, People can find you on X. Where are you most
Well, yeah, by
contactable?
the way, I also wrote two books, right, that people can order on Amazon. That
Yeah.
one was published in 2024. It's called
Oh,
Esoteric Trumpism.
ooh,
Yes. Yeah, which is quite popular actually, where I explore not Trump the man, but Trumpism, the phenomenon,
yeah,
Trump as a symbol, basically, from a philosophical perspective, like from the
yeah.
perspective of Oswald Spengler, Hegel, Nietzsche, H.P. Lovecraft. Then another book which was published this year in January, is called Multipolarity! Exclamation mark, also on Amazon, which is basically also, well, it's about the idea of multipolarity, what we discussed on the show a little bit, but
Hmm.
goes a little bit deeper, also more philosophical with Martin Heidegger, the concept of Dasein, Franz Boas, cultural relativism, uh,
Yeah.
Alain de Benoit, ethnopluralism, all that stuff,
Hmm.
described in great detail. So if you're interested, you should check out these two books, both
Absolutely.
on
Do you have another
Amazon.
one
Available.
coming out too, or are you focusing on the publishing house right now?
But I'm writing a book right now, and it will come out in October, but I don't want to reveal the title
Okay.
yet. So
All right.
I'll announce it very soon.
Okay.
Right. It's also connected to multipolarity, but from a very specific, unexpected angle. That's all I can
Oh,
say for now.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
it's almost October now, so it'll be out soon, or
Yeah,
at least the
it will be
announcement will
out
be.
like in a couple of weeks.
All right.
I've been working on it for months now. Yeah, I also have two Substacks. I have multipolarpress.com, which leads to a Substack page right now, but will be a proper website very soon. And then on which I publish a variety of authors. But then also have my own personal Substack, which is called
Ooh,
eurosiberia.net. Yes, in which I only publish my own writings. Usually like one or two essays per week, short essays
okay.
about different topics. Well,
Sounds very stark, Euro-Siberia.
yeah, that's from Guillaume Faye, the French philosopher, was his concept. Eurasiberia is a great European empire from Dublin to Vladivostok.
Ah, okay. All right. Well, interesting times are upon us, and so it's always
Definitely.
important to talk to as many different people and try to be open and interact with ideas across just many different valences. So that's why I run my channel, and people like you make it make sense for me to be doing this. So thank you very much.
Well, I'm very happy you invited me, and I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yeah, it's a good thing. I'm going to end the recording. Cool. Thank you, Constantine.